Top Democratic senators are publicly vowing to block a government funding package this week if it includes money for the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. Senator Dick Durbin, who was one of 8 Democratic senators who voted with Republicans to reopen the government last fall, wrote on X last night, quote, "I will not vote to fund the illegal DHS and ICE operations that terrorize Chicago, Minneapolis, and many other communities." It comes days after 7 House Democrats joined most Republicans to pass billions in funding for DHS. But the legislation has another caveat. It also funds the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. And as a major snowstorm is wreaking havoc across much of the eastern U.S., at this hour, there's concern that blue states may feel the weight of President Trump's retribution. The president has already played favorites with disaster relief by denying aid to states that didn't vote for him in 2024. One of those states caught up in the snowstorm is New Jersey, and we're joined now by its newly sworn-in governor, Mikey Sherrill. Governor, thanks for joining us. I just want to ask you to start, are you concerned about federal disaster aid being withheld from your state after this storm, and what does the future of FEMA funds look like more broadly?
Well, as you can imagine, as a state that sends $70 billion more to the federal government than we receive back in services, all of these constant cuts to services are really both offensive and both hard to understand how the federal government keeps trying to punish states, whether it's cuts to the Department of Education, to the Department of Health. Now you're talking about FEMA. Again and again, we're seeing a federal government that seems to politicize the economy, all at the same time driving up tariffs, driving up costs for the people of New Jersey as Trump pockets billions and billions of dollars.
Governor, as my colleague Elise just pointed out, Democrats in the Senate are considering blocking funding for DHS, which would mean potentially withholding funding from FEMA. What would that mean for your state if, in fact, the annual appropriations for FEMA were held up?
Well, we are seeing Trump illegally holding up appropriations all of the time, whether it's attacking the Gateway Tunnel, for example, or attacking education or healthcare or FEMA across the country. So really, at this point, I think what has to happen is everyone, not just Democrats, but everyone in the Senate and the House has to start to fight back against this unlawful use of resources. We are seeing a president who's whole scale ignoring the power of the courts, ignoring the power of our legislative branch, and it is past time that the legislative branch took action.
Right, but just to clarify, do you support Democrats in the Senate holding up funding for DHS, even if it means no appropriations for FEMA right now?
You have to take the broader look at this. We now see funding for a proto-militia, private militia, taking loyalty oaths to the president, not taking oaths to the Constitution, killing Americans. It didn't just start with Alex Preddy. It started with Renee Good, a mom with kids who are, 15? She had a 6-year-old. She had a 12-year-old. I mean, those are my kids' ages. She's in her Honda Pilot trying to get home. She had just dropped a kid off at school and was given mixed messages and gets shot and killed for that. Then we see Alex, who's an ICU nurse at the VA, who's taking care of people, and because he stands in the way of somebody tear gassing a woman, gets held down by about 7 agents and then shot 10 times and killed. This is what is happening in our country right now. It is high time, I would say it's past time, that the Senate took action on this.
Governor Sherrill, you just used the term proto-militia, and we're hearing terms like that from more and more Americans, even people who have in the past been very supportive of DHS, of ICE, and the sort of broader immigration enforcement apparatus. But at this point, given what we have seen, not just in Minneapolis, of course, you pointed to the 2 killings there, but your state has actually been hit hard by ICE, even if it hasn't been as publicized nationally. I have spoken to families, communities that have been devastated by raids that have happened in towns like Morristown. So what do you believe fundamentally should be done to ICE at this point if, as you and other Democrats say, it's essentially become a personal army for President Trump?
Well, that's not just me saying it. It's for example, people who are career DHS agents quitting the force because they've been asked to take a loyalty oath to Trump, not the Constitution. It's the fact that we have agents on the street who will not identify themselves, who are wearing masks on our street. And when our own law enforcement goes up to them to ask them who they represent, who they are, as they're carrying weaponry on the streets of New Jersey, they refuse to respond. So we're seeing them destroy economies. I mean, we lost millions of dollars at the port, one of the largest ports in the entire nation here in New Jersey, and we lost millions of dollars as they conduct raids, terrorizing neighborhoods, and then refusing to make sure that those officers in ICE are following the law. They're acting far outside the scope of their duties, which takes them out from the protections of a federal law enforcement agency. And that's why we will be prosecuting people to the full extent of the law should they act in an illegal manner, as we are seeing across this nation.
Governor, real quick, I know we're out of time, but do you believe ICE should be abolished?
I believe that there should not be an out-of-control agency like this who's acting outside the scope of their duties and taking loyalty oaths to the president. What we need is an agency that is taking care of our borders, protecting people on the streets, and they're going far outside of that. So at this point, we need to take a pause on funding. We need to have an ICE stand down so we can understand how they will be coming back into their job. I don't know that we're going to see a president doing this. Right now, we are seeing people like Kristi Noem just lie about what happened, as citizens of this country are watching on videos of exactly what took place. So at this point, I would say that ICE is no longer performing the mission, no longer keeping people safe, and instead really terrorizing our neighborhoods.
New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I know it's a busy day for you. Thank you.
It really is. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Anytime.